Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Mark Castleberry, and he's a director of enterprise applications with more than 2 decades of experience leading HR technology, ERP, and cloud transformation programs across both consulting and industry roles. And in our conversation today, we're going to explore where communication breaks down between technical teams and business stakeholders, how those gaps impact outcomes, and what strong technical communicators can do differently. Welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Mark.
Hey, it's wonderful to be here, Neil, and thanks for having me on.
You got it. First question, where do you see these breakdowns between technical teams and business stakeholders happen most often?
Two things, the business impact and the business value. I think sometimes when our engineers are communicating, they're thinking in terms of the nuts and bolts, how things work. And while that's important, what the business is listening for is how will this impact our employee experience or our customers or, the bottom line. So really bringing those to the front of the conversation, I think is critical.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. When I first started this podcast, it was all based on me working as an engineer and having to give presentations in front of management. And I know for a fact that my presentations at first weren't that great because I wasn't taking into account what these business-minded people, these management types were interested in knowing. And I just figured that what I thought was interesting, they would think what it would be interesting as well. And that just was not the case. And you would have thought I would have gotten that. You would have thought I'd gotten the message after that first presentation, but no, it wasn't until my project got canceled. You know, I
Oh,
I thought you
oh
said,
no.
yeah, this whole presenting in front of these business types, maybe there's something I need to improve at. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm curious then when it comes to these breakdowns, what do you see as the most common outcomes of these breakdowns happening?
Uh, that's a great question. Where I see that surface on my team, you know, we usually try to spin back around and catch up to the business. Maybe it's a little bit of damage control if there was something where they didn't understand, where trying to communicate some technical challenge. I think what's more important for them is to understand, hey, risk to timelines or support issues, that sort of thing. So I'm not sure I answered your question exactly, but the to me it's rectifying by bringing it back to what is the impact, what is the value, so that it's clearly understood with the business.
Yeah, hopefully the outcome isn't the project getting canceled.
Right.
Yeah, that was I mean that happened over 15 years ago now. And I still think back to those days and then I think, man, if I was just better at communicating the
Mhm.
usefulness of this product, then maybe they could have it out there right now making, good money for the company, but I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No issues. Okay, and the next question then, I've been in situations, and perhaps you have as well, in you are presenting a technical presentation, but there are different types of people in the audience. There may be business people, there may be technical people, and then everybody in between. How do you go about giving such a presentation to a mixed audience?
That's a good question. uh, I've approached that a few different ways. If there's some way that you have a good sense of who's going to be in the room before the presentation, in some cases, I might pre-read some of the technical work with that audience just so that in the meeting with the VP of operations or somebody that's more on the business side, we're not getting into the nuts and bolts on the engineering pieces. If it's something where I'm coming in there cold and need to serve multiple audiences, I think I my tendency is to thread the needle by keeping it at a higher level and then open it up for questions on the audience. But kind of the yeah, that would be my first take on how to address that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, as you said, if at all possible, find out who's going to be in the audience. And then I think it's also useful to know if they're going to be decision makers in the audience. You definitely want to make sure that they understand because if the decision maker doesn't understand, but other people do, I mean, does it really matter? I mean, ultimately, it's the
Yeah,
decision maker has to understand.
you're making me think of some more things that I would. It depends on the purpose of the meeting. If it was just a readout, so for awareness is one thing, but if you need a decision and you know the style, especially of the decision maker, I want to adjust my whole presentation to that. Are they bottom line up front, or do you need to show them the math before you get to the thing you're asking for? But I like to be really crisp on what are the objectives I'm looking for from this meeting, and then drive my agenda towards those objectives.
Yeah, and I think, and at least something that I eventually started doing is I would go to these management types, administrative assistants, and ask them what kind of information do I need to have in this presentation that would be appealing to your boss. It was difficult to get time with the decision makers themselves since they're busy, but if you go to their admins and ask them, they'll likely give you some good information to make sure that whatever you're going to talk about is going to be of interest to those decision makers. So that's definitely
Yeah,
something that.
that's definitely any intel beforehand is going to help.
Yeah, 100%. So if you are in the audience and you're seeing a technical person present, how do you know that they're, well, at least what signs are they giving you that they are communicating effectively?
Ah, that's interesting. One thing that always resonates for me is that compelling storytelling, right? That's going to pull me into what they're trying to explain or sell. So, kind of setting the stage with, "Hey, I was trying to solve this problem, and here's like whatever that is." If you can pull me into your story, usually you have my full attention. So it may be more about my behavior than them that's telling me if they're effective. If I'm checking my phone and thinking about the next meeting, maybe there's something on their end that could pull the audience in a little more.
I think that's really insightful actually. And when I first started giving presentations in front of management, I didn't even value the importance of storytelling. I thought, that was for some, especially giving a technical presentation, what place does storytelling have? But to your point, I think it's really useful to just in keeping people's attention because you could hit people with all the data, but I mean, if they are not of the same level of expertise
Yeah.
as you, then they're likely going to be inundated with all this data and they don't know what to do with it really, and then they
Right.
start looking at their phone, like as you
No,
mentioned.
you want to go, if you're selling, you want to go for inception, right? Like you want to set this thing up so that it becomes their idea, right? And then they're bought in on, "Oh wow, okay, Neil solved it. We need this thing to happen."
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then there are instances in which, as a technical person, you are tasked with talking about trade-offs to these business types or to these decision makers. How would you counsel a technical person in communicating trade-offs to these people?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I yeah, I'm a bit of a car geek, and one thing you find with cars is out of these three, right? Fast, reliable, and cheap. You can only pick two, and that that seems to be true with technology too, right? Like they want you to deliver fast, and they want it to be reliable. It is not going to be cheap, And anyway, you get the idea, but framing it up around what those trade offs are in a way that's relatable to the audience is probably most effective, and I think they'll understand that.
Yeah, I'm looking at those three traits: fast, reliable, and cheap. And I'm trying to think, is it ever possible to have all three? I think you're right. I don't think so.
Yeah, in technology, then there's maybe something behind door number four if you got all three of those. Yeah,
I've found that in many instances, especially with technical people who are coming into careers, they think that their technical expertise is primary, and that any idea of communicating in front of others isn't something that they should prioritize. What would you say to somebody who thinks that way?
um, yeah. I think I'm thinking of the best way to put it. You might be limiting yourself and the influence that you can have over your career if you are relying strictly on your technical proficiency and not thinking about how you'll interact with others and get buy-in for your ideas, especially when there's something that's going to require working across different teams or companies.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a patent attorney, but before she was a patent attorney, she was an engineer. And she said that when she worked as an engineer, she thought that her technical expertise was what she needed to prioritize, and that anybody who was in a decision-making role would see the fact that she's good at her job and would offer her opportunities based on her being technically proficient. And when she saw that wasn't happening, she was rather disgruntled by that. And I remember thinking at the time, well, hopefully you eventually got the message that just being technically proficient isn't good enough. Although I will say that I don't think she did, because even as an older person, I mean, this woman must be in her 70s by now. She
Hmm.
still seems to think that just being good at her job was should have been good enough to move up within organizations. And you could be mad about that all you want, but ultimately at least to me, the people who get those
Yeah,
opportunities are the ones who are not just proficient at their technical expertise, but in communicating the usefulness of that technical expertise to the decision makers.
right. If you like what you're doing and just want to keep your nose in the code, I think you might be okay, but you're going to set a low bar in terms of influence and ability to move up if that's your strict focus.
Yeah. And imagine if such a person did get an opportunity to manage people, they'd probably be terrible at it, because
Yeah,
a part of being a manager of people, as far as I can see, is being able to communicate well.
yeah, yeah. That the emotional intelligence and relating to others, I think, is heavier and heavier part of your job the farther up you go.
Yeah. I was having a conversation with another guest. This must have been maybe a year or so ago, and she said that she worked with this programmer, and she could see him from her
Mhm.
desk. And on his desk, he had a red cube and a green cube. And when the cube was green, you could talk to him. But when the cube was red, you had to leave him alone. I just,
Okay.
I just remember thinking to myself, I'm not sure this guy's management material.
Yes, that makes me think of the Brazilian steakhouse where I always overeat. But that's great.
Yeah, 100%. I haven't been to a Brazilian steakhouse in a while. I don't think I'm due. Yeah.
I
Okay.
need to jog a few miles first.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you don't go there for salad, that's for sure.
No.
All right. So I'm curious. I mean, I spoke about my own struggles earlier in our conversation, Mark, and me seeing the benefit of improving in communicating with decision makers. I'm curious from your own background, is communicating something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to improve?
I feel like I was born with a gift for gab, but in terms of getting in front of a room of people, that took a little practice and really repetitions and honestly rehearsal. I felt like if I knew my material, I was going to be okay. But I still didn't want to go in front of a big room unprepared. So I would, like I mentioned before, always have an agenda or a story that I wanted to tell to get my ideas across. And from there, knowing the material and repping any sort of presentation, those were critical.
Do you have a process for presenting in front of people, Mark? And if so, what is it?
That's a great question. So I was a project manager before I was in my current role, and it felt like my job was quite often presenting status or trying to drive a decision. And I would generally prepare, like, kind of script out how I wanted the meeting to go. I would also think about the stakeholders that would be in the room and try to empathize what questions will they have. So anticipating those questions and from there, what is my answer going to be, or who will I defer to that they may get asked? And so, really, that preparation would drive out a lot of details where I think it creates an aura of control where your customers see or your stakeholders see like this person's really thought it through they get it, and really, yeah. So that process, I think I summed it up pretty well there. But that would be, especially for critical meetings, imperative for me to go in prepared. Um, yeah,
I think being able to anticipate questions beforehand so that you have answers at the ready is smart. And now that we have generative AI, we can use it to figure out
oh
what kind
yeah,
of questions do you think someone with this background would have based on what I'm going to be speaking about, and let it give you those questions. And then, okay, I'm gonna have those questions or those questions answered. And although one another question I just thought about right now, Mark, let's just
yeah,
say you do you're giving your presentation, you've done your best to anticipate questions or anticipate questions and have answers for them, but you get this question that you don't know the answer to. How do you handle that?
yeah. My honesty is my best policy. So on that one, depending on the gravity of the question, I would tend to say, I don't know. Let me take that away and get back. I'm not scared to say I don't know, especially when I don't. So that's that's probably the number one answer. If we have the people collected where someone else might know, then I could open it back up to the room. But if it's a direct question to me and I don't know, I'm going to take that down as some homework.
Yeah, I mean, I commend you for that because I did not have that kind of confidence of saying I don't know. And in fact, I wrote a piece on the challenge or the reason why technical people may shy away from presenting, and that was one of the reasons I gave is that technical people, they see themselves as these experts, and they also see themselves as people that should know the answer. So if they are in a presentation and they get a question that they don't know the answer to, they really don't want to ever be in that position. They always want to
Yeah,
have that answer. So I mean, becoming more comfortable saying I don't know, but I will find out, I think is really helpful.
100%. Yeah, I think to your point, those folks might be worried it'll hurt their credibility if they don't know, but I think it actually raises your credibility if they realize they're not afraid to say I don't know. They're not going to now all your other answers feel that much more valid because you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're giving a presentation as a technical person and there are other technical people in the audience, you don't want to give an answer and you know for a fact that these people know what the answer is or potentially know what the answer is, and they may very well call you out during the meeting. You don't ever want to be in that position
Right.
either.
Yeah, that's a bold strategy to just throw something out there and hope you're right. That's not for me.
Yeah, you don't want to you certainly don't want to get embarrassed, and that certainly is going to hurt your
Yeah,
credibility. I think that hurts your credibility more than saying I don't know.
correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Mark. You know that there are technical people in your organization, and they see the benefit of improving their communication skills. So, what do you think an organization can do to help them make those improvements?
That's a great question. Creating those opportunities for people to shine in front of a group. Uh, a lot of companies have their own Toastmasters organization. I've seen a lot of people really blossom with their public speaking from there. And then, candidly, I feel like the person that uh, wants to grow in that regard needs to be vocal about it, right? Like I want to own my growth and development. So if you have listeners that hear this, I would challenge them to like let your manager know that this is something you're after and see if they can help you find those opportunities to cover a topic in a meeting or pitch a whatever the opportunity might be.
Yeah, I think something also that could be helpful is if you are that technical person who wants to improve and you go to your boss and say that's something you want to improve at, if it's possible for him or her to point you to another technical person who is good at communicating with others and say, sit in on some of this person's presentations and see what they do and try to incorporate some of that into your presentations as well because they are often we often tout them as exceptional or effective communicators. So, it's not necessarily copying somebody else, but taking the things that they do that you like and incorporating it into what you do.
Yeah. I had thought of a couple more things while you're sharing that too. And I feel really blessed where I work. We have a great talent development team that gives us tons of training opportunities for things like that. And one thing I got the opportunity to do was record myself and to see, yeah, like I'm sure when you drop this on YouTube, I'll go back and look at it and then flinch when I realize, oh, Mark, you're doing this. And, like one thing I clearly remember learning is when I get asked a question, sometimes I look up as I'm thinking. But when I saw myself do it, it looked like I was rolling my eyes at the question. And I sure hope I didn't do that to you, Neil. But like that self awareness that you think you have, you don't fully have it. Get yourself on video and you'll learn some things.
No, I certainly didn't notice.
Oh no, I'm talking about me. Yeah, so yeah, I hope I didn't ever do it, but yeah, I
Yeah,
had to coach myself out of it.
I hear you. This question was one I wasn't even thinking of asking, but I want to get your
Mhm.
thoughts on it anyway, Mark. So I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I sat in on a session on presentation skills, interestingly enough. And the presenter said that when you are asked a question from an audience member, you look at them as the presenter, you look at them while you answer the question, but then you always, or what she says is that you should also look at the other people in the audience when you're answering the question as well. What is your take on that?
Uh, I could see both. Yeah, for me, in a room, if you're making it just about you and the person that asked the question, you might lose engagement with other audience members. So if you start with them and then look around the room to make sure other folks are still following and engaged, I see that as valuable. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm curious, did you have a different read on it?
Yes. My read was that if the person that asked you the question, there's one thing that is for sure, is that the person that asked you the question wants an answer. It's not it's not clear whether the other people in the audience care about the answer. So at least in my mind, if I'm the presenter, I'm looking at the person that is asking the question the entire time. And anyone else
Mm,
who's interested in hearing the answer, obviously they're there, their ears work, they can hear the
yeah.
answer. But I wouldn't assume that the other people in the room want to know the answer, so I'm going to look at them too because I mean it was really interesting
Okay.
when she was saying that. I remember thinking to myself, well, I don't know if you should be looking at me, especially if I don't if I'm in the audience and I don't care about the answer because I'm probably looking at my phone. I'm looking at other places. I'm
Yeah.
looking at you.
Interesting. Yeah. I'll keep that in mind next time I get the opportunity.
Yeah, because the reason even I even thought about this is she showed us a video of a gentleman, I think it was an engineer, giving a presentation at a technical conference, and she asked us in the audience what did he do wrong? And one of the things that she said is that he looked at the person who asked the question the entire time while answering the question, and
Hmm.
he didn't look at other people in the room. And she said that was something that he should improve on. But I just remember thinking, well, I mean. He he
Yeah.
he he wants the answer. The person in the audience. It's not clear that the other people in the audience care about the answer. So why would you look at them?
Yeah. I agree with your point that other folks may not care. Uh, yeah. Where I think where I'm guessing they're coming from is that you might lose that engagement with some of the folks that are on the fence. Maybe they're listening, but then they see, oh, hey, he's looking around. He's coming to me next. Then, yeah, either way. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so this has been a really interesting conversation, Mark. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
sure, you can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Castleberry, and message me there. Uh, and Neil, I want to say thanks again for having me on. I was really looking forward to this, and I love what you're doing. I think there is a 1996 version of Mark that really would have benefited from going through and checking out some of your interviews and other material.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, and I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. See you, Neil.